So I'm now trying out my third Garmin Epix Gen2. For some reasons, the two first I got, one of them had a bad start-stop button, so the buttons didn't feel alright when I got the watch, but they started to feel better once I got using the watch, but the start-stop button just never really felt alright. It was too shallow and didn't really have any clicky feeling really. Worked just fine, but it just didn't feel alright. Then I contacted Garmin. They sent me a new Epix Gen2, but this one here was even worse. The up and menu button just didn't work at all, or just worked slightly sometimes. You could kind of feel that it didn't really press in on a button underneath the outer cap. So it was pretty obvious that the button didn't work all right just by feeling the button, but it didn't really click up, or when I hold the button, it didn't really go into the menu. But only when I release the button again, it will get into menu, and then I couldn't really use it to select anything or to move the watch menu system up. Then I contacted Garmin. It did take me around 14 days this time around to actually get them to send me a new one. They wanted me to send some video evidence, which I did, and then they just wrote back that I should try and clean the button with some water and so on. But yeah, this was a clear defective unit. But then I got my third one here, and actually, if you can see, all the 3 boxes, Garmin doesn't really want you to send back the boxes when you are sending back the watch. They just want you to send the watch alone without any watch straps or anything like that. So that's what I did, and that's the reason why I have 3 of the boxes. I only have 1 watch, which is this one here. I haven't opened it yet, but you can see there on the boxes, actually there is some differences. Now it doesn't say Gen 2 here, it does say Sapphire, because this is the Sapphire, black Sapphire version. And it's always been a little bit strange that there were no like markings on the box that actually said that this was a Sapphire watch. Unlike what you get here with the Fenix 7X, you can see it says Sapphire Solar. On the Epix, it just says it's a Gen 2 watch, and you can get a Gen 2, of course, in Sapphire, and you can also get it with normal stainless steel and just a glass screen. This time around, I have a hopes that this is a new revision, or at least the box is, as you can see there. It does say Sapphire. So let's just compare the 2 boxes here side by side. The only real difference is that it now says Sapphire, and then it says Gen 2 Premium Active Smartwatch underneath that. Here it just says Premium Active Smartwatch, so they just moved the Gen 2 branding there, or marking down below, and then wrote Sapphire on the box. Other than that, I believe there are really no differences between the two. And on the bottom there, you can see it is exactly the same model number. So 010-02582-11. So that's a kind of a curious thing. Maybe there is a newer revision out, or maybe they just changed the box and didn't really change anything about the watch itself. Third try here. I hope this time around I'll get a button that actually works. I would hate to contact Garmin again if there is an issue with the buttons, and I hope that at least it's just better than the first one, and of course that all buttons work just fine. So I won't have to go through the RMA process of Garmin, which is pretty good. Once they actually received my watch back, then they actually shipped out a new one the same day. So I got it the day after, but the whole process of contacting them can get a little prolonged. So it took them around 5 days to get back to me, and then they wanted me to send video evidence. It took several days to get back to me again, and then I finally got a new watch. And I got a little bit annoyed that I had constant issues with the buttons, so I thought maybe it's time to try something different. So I went out and bought a Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, because I really liked that OLED screen, and I thought maybe it's time to try a proper smartwatch and see if that's the direction I want to go. But kind of like this watch, but it definitely is not going to replace a watch like the Garmin Epix or my Fenix 7X for that matter. It is more of a toy-ish compared to something like a proper Garmin watch. So you cannot really have maps or topo maps on the watch itself. You can load GPS tracks on here, but we'll just use standard Google Maps to track that, and yeah, so on and so on. There's just so much stuff you are putting on your table when moving to a watch like this. And also I only got like 1.5 days of battery life if I had the always on screen turned on. So I feel like Epix is definitely the way forward if I want like OLED screen, and also I want all of those nice features like just having maps on board of the watch itself is such a nice feature to have. And let's just get into it and cut through the seal. There's no going back from here. And just keep my fingers crossed that this time around the buttons will be fine. Because man, it's just such an annoyance having to constantly swap out the watch. Looks exactly the same, so not black to my eyes. This is definitely more towards a very dark gray compared to like my Fenix 7X. which is actually the black one I have. You can also get it in a gray color, but you can see that it does seem to be more towards the gray, and the Epix compared to like the Phoenix is more like a dark black, matte black, versus a little bit shiny dark gray here on the Epix. I don't really mind that too much, but I would definitely prefer like a more darker black, as this one here looks nicer to me. But man, let's just get out the watch out here and actually try the buttons out right out of the bat. And start-stop button has nice clicky feeling. This is just so nice, because this button was the one that was really getting on my nerves on the first original ones I had. That one I got on release day, so it was first generation hardware or first batch, I would suppose. But yeah, nice clicky feeling. Back lap also have a nice clicky feeling. Doesn't have that extra click, at least not yet, as my like first gen Garmin Epix had, or my first watch had. You could sometimes feel like I was clicking it 2 times. Down button feels nice. And let's try that menu button. Up button, oh yeah, that's nice. Now it works properly. That's just such a bummer. The other one didn't work. And the light button, so yeah, all buttons feels nice and clicky. Nice tactical feel. And especially the start-stop button there is just such a refresh feel to be able to click it and feel that you've actually clicked something. Now it's up there with my 7X. I still feel like my 7X is a little bit better. The buttons are not as hard to press. The Epix Gen2's buttons is a little harder to press, but this is of course also a brand new watch. Once I break those in, of course it will get a little bit softer with time, or be a little bit smoother with time. But yeah, definitely buttons feels nice. That's such a nice bonus there. And one nice thing going through Garmin's RMA system is they don't want you to ship anything back to them. So now I have like a spare USB cable and also a spare watch band, because like I said, they only really want you to send the capsule back, so only the watch itself. So yeah, that's a nice relief. Let's just see if there's actually any power on there. So let's just remove this screen protector. Always so satisfying, that nice sapphire crystal glass there. And let's see if there's actually any power on here. So other than the box being different, I'm not really sure if there's any hardware changes. And I'm kind of curious to know if any of you guys had any issues with the buttons on your Epix. Maybe you have replaced it for a new one, gone through RMA with Garmin. Let me know down in the comments below, because I'm not really sure if this is a widespread issue. But like I said, I had to go through 3 of these, which is a little bit strange. One of them I ordered online in another country in Europe, just because it was the only place they had it in stock, like on the release date. The 2 ones here I got directly from Garmin themselves here in my country. So maybe there is some manufacturing problems with some of the buttons. I definitely have read on the Garmin forum that a lot of users had complained about buttons on the Epix and also on a lot of the smaller watches. I usually go for the big watches. I've not really had any issues with any of the buttons. But I did also have the 945 LCE recently. Those buttons just didn't feel all right either. So maybe it's an issue with the smaller watches, that there is kind of a button lottery there. But anyways, I will just set this up and pair it up with my phone, and let's after that see what kind of software it actually comes with. And I've already made like a setup video, so you go to my channel if you want to see that. But in this video here, I will just skip this part. So I have set up the watch here with my phone. Let's get into settings and actually go and see what kind of software we are operating with, or we are getting right out of the box. So we're getting software version 8.23 right out of the box, which is not the latest as of this video. That's 9.33. So still is a little bit behind in software. So I believe it's not really newer hardware, at least compared to the watch I got before this one here. I believe it came with the same software out of the box. And also one of the reasons why I really wanted the Epix over like a smartwatch like this one here, it was like in beginning, I was a little bit disappointed by the Epix. So we can have always on watch face, which is something I'm really used to, of course. I've had like this Garmin watches for many years now. I also kind of switch sometimes between Garmin watch and an Apple watch. But mainly I've been using Garmin watches, and you have a true always on screen night and day. And you can kind of have an always on screen on your Garmin watch, the Epix here. But when you get into sleep mode, it will actually turn off the screen. So if you have it set to like sleep mode from a specific time period. So I've set mine to go to sleep mode an hour before midnight. And once you do so, kind of see what I mean here, the watch goes into a sleep state, which is fine enough, but then the watch itself will actually turn off completely, like you can see here, and raising your wrist to actually see the time doesn't work anymore. The only way you can see the time is either to press the light button or to press the display itself. And if you go from having like the screen always on throughout the day, so you're just used to like peeking at your watch, to all of a sudden the screen will go off, and the only way to actually see the time is actually to touch the watch physically. That's kind of a big annoyance for me, at least. I'm not always going to bed the time that I set my watch to sleep at, so maybe I'll go to bed at midnight or 1 in the morning, and that's leave me with 2 hours without having the ability to kind of peek at the time of my watch, which is very annoying to me. But after actually getting a smartwatch like the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here, that also have always on display, it goes into this like mode you can see here, depending on what kind of watch face you have. You get into like a little bit dimmer mode, but this is actually very bright at nighttime. So when you're in bed, all lights of course turned off. Doesn't really seem to be a lot of brightness right now, but at night it can be actually a little bit blinding. So after getting this, having the always on display on, and actually get a little bit annoyed by it in the nighttime, I actually just went in here and enable sleep mode manually, and you kind of get into the sleep state there where it just turns on off the display, and you have to disable it again manually. I kind of used that when I was going to bed, so I understand why Garmin actually did this also, that they don't have like raise to wake feature when you're actually in sleep mode, because that gesture will just get triggered all the time when you're actually moving around in bed. So it doesn't really bother me that much anymore, because one of the annoyances was that you couldn't really set it up yourself. Like for instance, if I wanted this to be on always, I cannot do so. If I want to have raise to wake in sleep mode, I cannot set it to do so. I can only set sleep and not sleep state. That annoyed me quite a bit, to the point where I just disabled always on screen on the watch, and that kind of makes it feel a little bit more like a smart watch, which is not really a great thing for me personally, because like I said, I am so used to those reflective screens, and that's just such a nice bonus on a Garmin watch. But understanding why they actually did so, I've kind of become a little more forgiving about this feature, and I think I can actually live with it. And especially considering what you get with the watch like this, and not getting on a smartwatch like this here. You got on a nice OLED screen, but I actually prefer the OLED screen on the Epix. It's actually brighter and easier to see outdoors compared to the ones on the Samsung. It's a little bit on the dim side, so you'll still only get notifications on your watch. You cannot really answer calls. You cannot like use Smart Assistant. All those features is something I kind of hope we'll see with a higher end Garmin watch in the future. But just to have a watch that I don't really need to interact with the screen, I can use physical buttons, all the stuff I can do in the watch pretty much I can do in the watch itself. I'm not really reliant of a phone. Would have been nice to see some kind of LTE connectivity on the Garmin watches, maybe ability to answer calls. That would have been pretty cool also when you're out and doing your activity. And I still use these Yo-Side watch straps, and this is actually the one I had on the original Epix. All I've done is really wash it in the sink with some soap, and it's, I wouldn't say it's as brand new, but it's pretty close. So let's just actually put this on the Epix Gen2 here, and I've already made a video about this watch strap, so of course you can go to my channel and check that one out if you want to get some more details. But I highly recommend them. You can get them very cheap from Amazon, and of course I will share some affiliate link down in the description below. Only real downside with this watch band here is that it does get wet, of course, when you're using it, and it does take a little bit of time to actually dry out, but it's not really that bad. Maybe 30 minutes after you run, it should be dry, but up until that point, you can actually leave a little bit of water or sweat marks on stuff you are sitting at, like for instance your couch, or if you are resting your watch on your pants or your shirt, it can kind of soak a little bit through. But I really like these watch bands. So comfortable, breathable, doesn't give me a rash, and you know, I have it pretty tight on my wrist 24/7 non-stop, and I don't really notice it at all. But anyways, third time seemed to be the charm for me, at least in terms of buttons. And the always on screen, I'm a little bit more forgiving on the way it actually works now that it goes into a sleep mode. When you actually are enabling sleep on your watch, if you have it set to automatically, it will of course turn off the screen, which is actually pretty nice when you actually want to sleep, because yeah, that OLED screen is always on and it's actually emitting light, so it can be a little bit blinding at night. And other than that, I really look forward to actually travel a little bit lighter with a little bit smaller phone and a smaller watch. I feel like this is a nice combo and kind of makes sense to me to be able to actually keep the Epix, because I was debating with myself whether I should just sell it, because the 7X for me is still my primary watch. That flashlight there is just so nice to have, that always on screen, true always on screen, such a nice thing to have, but definitely feel like I am missing out a little bit with that screen quality in terms of color and resolution and so on, and I kind of miss having that nice OLED screen. Smartwatch just didn't do it for me personally. And nice to have with me on my run instead of carrying a phone, so it's kind of a small phone on my wrist. But day-to-day life, I could not really live with a watch like this once I've grown so accustomed to like a Garmin watch and all of its features. So yeah, I would highly recommend the Epix watch. Maybe look out for the newer box here that has Sapphire written on it. Maybe it's a newer model, a new generation or whatever. This definitely is the newest one out there in terms of its packaging, at least. I'm not really sure, like I said, if there's any hardware changes at all. But if you have button issues, maybe just go for the box that is the latest one, and you should hopefully get the latest and greatest in terms of hardware or batch of these watches here. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope to see you again in a future one. Until then, take care.